Most people think energy transmutation sounds mystical, like a trick you either believe in or don't. But the truth is, you've done it your entire life. Every time anger became action, every time heartbreak turned into art, every time pain turned into clarity, that was energy, transformed. You just weren't aware it was a skill you could refine. Here's the part that changes everything. Energy never disappears. It only shifts form. What you call emotion is simply energy in motion, and the way you hold it determines the direction it flows. When you resist it, it stagnates. When you meet it, it evolves. The alchemists weren't talking about turning lead into gold. They were describing the process of dense reactive states turning into radiant coherence inside the human field. But here's the real reason most people stay stuck. They try to think their way out of energy states that were created through the body. You can't outthink an emotion. You have to let it move. And that's where true transmutation begins. Imagine your body as a tuning fork. Each emotion vibrates at a specific frequency. Shame vibrates low and heavy. Joy, gratitude, love, they resonate higher and lighter. The key is not to avoid the low ones, but to meet them so fully that the frequency upgrades itself through you. When you feel stuck, what's really happening is trapped current. Your system's way of saying, there's energy here that hasn't completed its transformation. That's not failure. That's potential waiting to be reconfigured. In this guide, I'll show you exactly how to do that. Not by escaping your emotions, not by pretending to be positive, but by learning how to conduct energy through your awareness until it changes shape. Because when you understand this, when you become the alchemist of your own field, nothing external can control your inner weather again. Let's get precise. Energy transmutation isn't magic, it's mechanics. Think of yourself as both the observer and the tuning fork. Your attention is the conductor. Wherever it rests, energy reorganizes to match its quality. Here's the simplest model. There are two layers at play, the field and the form. The field is your frequency, your vibrational blueprint. The form is everything material that unfolds from it, your mood, your decisions, even how people respond to you. When the field shifts, the form follows. Most people try to change their reality by rearranging the form, forcing behavior, chasing results, controlling timing. But the actual lever of transformation sits upstream, in the field itself. Now, the tuning fork metaphor matters here. If you strike one fork and place another near it, the second one starts to hum at the same pitch. That's resonance. Your emotions, thoughts, and physical states work exactly the same way. When fear vibrates in your system, it seeks coherence. It tries to tune the rest of you to that same tone. That's why one anxious thought can spiral into a full-body experience. But the reverse is equally true. One coherent signal, say grounded breath or a calm awareness, can entrain the chaos back into harmony. Energy transmutation, then, is about becoming the stronger tuning fork. Not by suppressing what you feel, but by embodying a frequency stable enough that the reactive patterns start to align with it. This is what ancient mystics meant by mastering vibration, not performing rituals, but holding a coherent internal tone when life tests you. Here's the mistake everyone makes. They think high vibration means constant happiness. It doesn't. It means high coherence, the ability to stay integrated even while energy moves through contrast. Anger, sadness, guilt, these are raw materials. When you meet them consciously, they reorganize. You don't destroy them, you refine them. The same current that once erupted as self-sabotage becomes creative power when channeled through awareness instead of resistance. And awareness isn't passive. It's the active field that determines what happens next. You're not here to suppress energy. You're here to conduct it, to let dense emotion find its next octave through you. That's what makes transmutation real. But if awareness is the conductor, what's blocking most people from using it consciously? Why do some emotions seem impossible to shift, no matter how much inner work you do? The answer hides in a silent mechanism almost everyone misses. And once you see it, every stuck feeling will start to make sense. The biggest myth about energy work is that you have to get rid of negative emotion to manifest clearly. That's the illusion that keeps most people looping, chasing light while denying half of their power source. Transmutation doesn't mean elimination. It means inclusion, meeting the full range of your emotional spectrum until nothing in you is exiled. Let's break this myth through a real moment. Picture this. You're waiting for a message after a vulnerable text. You've said something honest, maybe for the first time in a while. Minutes stretch into hours. Your chest tightens. Your mind replays the scene. The vibration beneath that silence isn't just anxiety. It's pure energy, condensed and seeking release. Most people label it as rejection and spiral into contraction. But if you pause right there, right where the discomfort rises, something else becomes possible. Bring awareness to the pulse under the story. That current in your belly, that's movement waiting to be completed. If you breathe into it without judging, it starts to change texture. What was once fear of being ignored begins to feel like raw aliveness, shaking loose. This is the moment of transmutation, when emotion shifts from narrative to frequency, from thought to felt vibration. The same surge that once hurt becomes electricity your system can repurpose. The myth dies here. You never had to erase emotion. You had to digest it. Energy becomes trapped only when you freeze it with meaning. They didn't answer because I'm not enough. That story stops the current mid-flow. But awareness without interpretation keeps it moving. You become the space where energy completes itself. It's like compost, decay turning into nutrients. Every heavy emotion carries information. Guilt signals where your values misaligned. Anger points to boundaries crossed. Sadness reveals attachment ready to evolve. When you listen, not react, the message integrates and the energy recycles into clarity. That's why transmutation feels lighter, not because life got easier, but because your system stopped wasting energy on resistance. What blocks most people isn't the energy itself. It's their nervous system's belief that feeling deeply equals danger. That's the next gate we have to unlock. Because until your body feels safe to hold intensity, no amount of awareness can complete the transformation. And here's the paradox. The very sensations you've been avoiding are the doorway to your freedom. Your body is not the obstacle to energy work. It's the instrument. The nervous system is the translator between energy and experience, the bridge where vibration becomes perception. If that bridge feels unsafe, the current gets distorted. No amount of high vibes can override a dysregulated body. Safety is not luxury. It's the prerequisite for transmutation. Here's the secret most people miss. Your nervous system doesn't care about your spiritual ideals. It cares about survival. If intensity, emotional or energetic, ever felt unsafe in your past, your system learned to clamp down the moment big energy rises. That clamp is what we mistake for being stuck. Energy isn't blocked because it's bad. It's paused because your body doesn't yet trust that it's safe to feel it. So the first step to coherence is teaching the body that presence is not punishment. Let's do this together. Just a 45-second recalibration. Close your eyes if you can. Breathe in through your nose for a slow count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through the mouth for 6, like you're letting out steam. Now place a hand on your chest, one on your belly. Feel the rhythm between them. Whisper internally, "It's safe to feel what I feel." Let the breath find its own pace. Notice where tension hides, jaw, throat, stomach, and instead of fixing it, imagine breathing space around it. You're not forcing relaxation. You're signaling safety. When the body receives that signal, the energy you've been holding begins to thaw. That's coherence in action. Your system finding a synchronized rhythm between heart, brain, and field. When this alignment happens, electromagnetic patterns around the body become measurable in smoother, more harmonic waves. You literally become a more coherent tuning fork, and coherence is the real catalyst for transmutation. Because in a coherent state, energy can reorganize without distortion. Anger can release without turning into aggression. Sadness can move without becoming despair. You stop reacting and start conducting. You don't need to raise your vibration. You need to stabilize it. Coherence isn't about hype. It's about integration. And when integration happens, the same charge that once felt overwhelming now fuels creativity, intuition, and clarity. But coherence alone isn't the finish line. It's the foundation. The next evolution happens when you realize that energy doesn't just move through temporary states. It reconfigures your identity. Because transmutation isn't about changing your mood. It's about changing who's vibrating. Every emotional state you experience is like a song playing through your system. Temporary, shifting, gone in minutes or hours. But identity is the station the songs play from. Until you change that, you'll keep hearing the same tracks no matter how many you skip. Energy transmutation at the surface level shifts how you feel, but at the identity level, it rewires who you are inside the field, the frequency baseline you broadcast even in silence. That's the leap from, "I feel calm," to, "I am coherence." From, "I'm manifesting abundance," to, "I am the frequency of enoughness." States come and go. Identity stabilizes the current. Here's where people unknowingly sabotage their process. They use energetic tools to manage symptoms while holding the same internal identity that created the imbalance. You can breathe, visualize, and journal for hours, but if deep down you still identify as the one who's trying to fix, the field aligns with effort, not ease. Transmutation asks a harder but more liberating question. Who am I when this emotion completes? When fear turns into presence, when scarcity melts into gratitude, who remains? That identity isn't built through affirmations. It's revealed when energy finishes its cycle and coherence becomes your natural resting tone. Think of it like gold refining. The flame doesn't add purity. It burns away what doesn't belong. The identity that emerges after the fire isn't a new self. It's your original signal, unobstructed. And this shift isn't theoretical. You start noticing it in subtle moments. You don't over-explain yourself anymore. You breathe before reacting. You stop chasing validation because your nervous system no longer craves external proof of worth. That's identity-level transmutation, the field reorganizing reality to reflect the new signal you're broadcasting. Once this inner shift stabilizes, timelines, the paths of possibility around you, begin to realign. Because every identity corresponds to a different probable reality, a new frequency corridor you tune into automatically. That's not fantasy. It's physics of resonance. The version of you anchored in fear lives on one station. The version of you embodying coherence lives on another. And when the identity changes, your timeline does too. The question is, how do you consciously step between them without forcing, without faking, and without spiritual bypass? The answer lives in the next field. Timelines as resonance, and how identity selects them moment by moment. Let's talk about timelines, not as fantasy, but as frequency corridors. Each one is a version of reality vibrating at a specific coherence pattern. You're not creating new timelines. You're tuning into the one that matches your current identity's vibration. The shift happens the moment your internal signal stabilizes into a different frequency. Here's how it actually works. Every thought, every posture, every breath broadcasts data into the field. A signature pattern of coherence or fragmentation. That signature determines what synchronizes with you. You don't force a new outcome. You resonate with it. The moment your system aligns with a higher coherence version of yourself, the external begins to reorganize to match. Let's ground that with a real-life moment. Imagine you're in a job interview. You've prepared, but part of you still identifies as the version who hopes to be chosen. That version leaks micro-signals of need, subtle tension in your tone, breath slightly held, heart rhythm uneven. The interviewer doesn't read that consciously, but the field does. The coherence mismatch communicates, not yet ready. Now, picture transmuting that same moment. Before walking in, you bring your attention to the body, regulate your breath, and tune into the frequency of the version of you who's already contributing value, not waiting for permission. That signal is clean, congruent. You're not acting confident. You're resonating as coherence. The difference in outcome isn't luck. It's physics. The field mirrors the tone you sustain. Identity is the selector, not intention alone. You can visualize all day, but if your body vibrates in the frequency of, "I'm not safe yet," that's the timeline you'll keep tuning into. The shift happens when the nervous system, the field, and awareness align in one coherent broadcast. I am safe now to hold more energy, more visibility, more life. When that alignment stabilizes, new realities feel less like manifestation and more like recognition, as if they were always waiting on your frequency to catch up. That's why transmutation feels like remembering, not achieving. You begin to see that timelines aren't chosen through effort, but through coherence. You move through versions of reality the way a radio glides between stations. Smooth, inevitable, unforced. But how do you rehearse this kind of identity tuning in daily life? How do you stabilize a frequency long enough for a new timeline to fully lock in? That's where the real toolkit comes in, the bridge between knowing and embodying. Here's where energy work stops being theory and becomes muscle memory. You can't think your way into coherence. You have to practice it until your body becomes the signal. Transmutation is a skill, and like any skill, it strengthens through repetition under pressure. Let's build your personal rehearsal toolkit. 4 tools that turn energy movement into a lived habit. 1. Bridge statements. When you're caught between frequencies, say between fear and trust, your mind can't jump straight to a higher state. It needs a bridge. Phrases like, "I'm learning to feel safe while I expand," Or, it's possible for this to work even while I feel uncertain. Create a vibrational ladder. They validate the current state while inviting the next one in. That small permission keeps the current flowing instead of splitting into resistance. 2. Somatic anchors. Choose one physical gesture that represents coherence for you. Maybe a hand over the heart, a slow exhale, or a grounding press of your feet into the floor. The body remembers repetition faster than the mind does. Each time you use that anchor while regulating breath, you condition your nervous system to associate that gesture with safety and alignment. Over time, it becomes a switch that restabilizes your signal instantly. 3. Emotional transmutation breath. This one's simple but potent. Inhale through the nose, imagining you're drawing dense energy up from your belly. Hold at the heart. Exhale through the mouth, visualizing that same energy radiating as light. You're literally teaching your body to transform charge into coherence. No suppression, just alchemy through awareness. 4. Reality rehearsal. This is where timelines start to lock in. Before sleep or during still moments, imagine yourself living as the version who's already integrated the frequency you desire. Not watching them, but being them. Notice the micro feelings, their breath, tone, posture. Let your body memorize those sensations. You're encoding the identity into your nervous system so that reality naturally begins to tune to it. The beauty of this practice is consistency. You're not trying to manifest. You're training your field to broadcast congruence, the ultimate magnet. Here's what I want to hear from you. Have you noticed that the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. Still, even with the right tools, most people face 3 traps that quietly scramble their frequency: urgency, split signals, and over-control. These are the hidden leaks that drain your coherence before manifestation ever lands. Let's expose the 3 silent saboteurs of transmutation, the subtle distortions that drain your energy field even when you're doing everything right. The first is urgency. Urgency is disguised fear. It whispers, if this doesn't happen soon, I'll lose something. But the moment that frequency enters your field, coherence collapses. Urgency creates contraction, a signal of lack disguised as drive. Energy stops flowing and begins looping in survival mode. Transmuting urgency doesn't mean giving up momentum. It means reassigning pace to presence. When you notice the rush, pause. Feel the body's micro-tension, the flutter in your gut, the shallow breath, and breathe through it until the current softens. Then move again from clarity, not panic. The irony? Releasing urgency actually speeds things up because energy travels fastest through relaxed systems. The second is split signals. This one's subtle but deadly to coherence. It's when your conscious intention says one thing while your subconscious hums another. You visualize abundance but secretly feel guilt receiving it. You affirm love but fear losing it. The field can't organize around mixed frequencies. It mirrors the stronger one. And the stronger one is always the emotion you actually embody. To transmute split signals, you don't fight the contradiction. You integrate it. Name both sides out loud. Part of me wants this, part of me fears it. Then breathe into the center until both voices feel acknowledged. Integration creates a unified broadcast. The third is over-control. Control is the ego's attempt to secure safety by micromanaging outcomes. But control blocks flow. It's like holding the tuning fork so tightly it can't vibrate. The energy you're trying to command can't move because you've trapped it with tension. The antidote is trust through embodiment, moving your body in ways that express surrender, stretching, shaking, dancing, until your system remembers that safety doesn't require control. Each of these obstacles shares one root: the nervous system's confusion between intensity and danger. When the body believes high energy equals threat, it will unconsciously sabotage coherence to protect you. That's why regulation isn't a side practice, it's the main channel. When urgency relaxes, signals unify, and control softens, you enter a state of natural authority, effortless magnetism. Transmutation stops being a technique and becomes your default way of metabolizing reality. And that's where it gets beautiful. Because once you stabilize coherence internally, you realize it doesn't have to stay confined to your spiritual moments. You can carry it into everything: the walk, the meal, the conversation. That's where real integration begins. Here's where energy transmutation stops being practice and becomes your baseline. Integration means your coherence doesn't depend on meditation music, crystals, or solitude. It weaves through your everyday moments until life itself becomes your energy lab. When you walk, for instance, notice the rhythm of your steps syncing with your breath. That's coherence made physical. You're literally pulsing a frequency of harmony into the earth with every stride. When you eat, feel how the food meets your body, not just through taste but through vibration. Gratitude changes the molecular structure of digestion. This isn't poetry, it's physics. A coherent heart field reorganizes biological systems toward harmony. Try this. Next time you're in conversation, whether at work, with a friend, or in a tense dialogue, practice holding coherence instead of defending your point. Feel your chest open, your breath steady, your tone grounded. Notice how the energy in the room starts to match you. The field doesn't need words to translate coherence. It responds to presence. This is what I call ordinary magic. The moment coherence becomes your baseline, the world starts behaving differently around you. Random kindnesses appear. Solutions arrive without strain. People mirror back your calm, not because you manipulated them, but because your signals stabilized and reality tuned to it. It's the subtle moments that reveal your mastery. When you check your bank account and stay relaxed instead of contracting. When a plan shifts and you feel curiosity instead of panic. When silence doesn't mean rejection anymore, just space. That's the sign you've moved from performing energy work to living it. And yet, something surprising happens here. Once you integrate coherence into daily life, a new threshold appears, a pull beyond personal transformation. The energy starts to expand, reaching into bigger domains, relationships, creativity, health, even collective fields. The same mechanism that shifted your mood begins to alter the way reality organizes on a larger scale. That's the next stage of transmutation, where your coherence doesn't just stabilize your life, it starts to elevate everything you touch, because energy never stops at you. Once refined, it radiates, and the field around you listens. When coherence expands beyond the self, it begins to repattern entire domains of your reality. Relationships soften, creativity ignites, health recalibrates. Purpose becomes less about ambition and more about alignment. You stop asking, "How do I make this happen?" and start asking, "What frequency does this experience live on?" Let's ground that in a new scenario, one from the creative domain. Imagine you're staring at a blank page, project due, inspiration gone. The old pattern kicks in, self-doubt, urgency, mental scrambling. But now you recognize it. That heavy vibration isn't failure, it's potential energy, compressed and waiting for permission to move. Instead of forcing an idea, you place a hand on your heart, breathe, and feel the charge in your chest. You stop labeling it as block and start meeting it as current. And something wild happens. That charge begins to change temperature. The tightness loosens. Thoughts start connecting. A phrase drops in. The page comes alive again. That's transmutation applied to creativity. Stagnation turning to flow the moment coherence returns. The same law applies to relationships. When you hold coherence instead of defense, the other person's nervous system entrains to yours. Arguments dissolve faster not because you avoided tension, but because you metabolized it instead of multiplying it. Emotional safety becomes your field's natural broadcast, and people relax in your presence without knowing why. Health operates under this same principle. Coherence is not a miracle cure, but it is a biological signal for repair. When your electromagnetic field smooths out, cells receive clearer instructions, hormones regulate, immune response improves. You stop fighting your body and start partnering with it. That's not mysticism. That's communication through resonance. And as your frequency stabilizes across these domains, purpose starts to find you instead of being hunted. You begin attracting roles, projects, and people that match your vibrational blueprint. It's not luck. It's coherence pulling coherence. The deeper realization? Transmutation isn't about personal power. It's about participation in a living field that organizes through harmony. You're not bending reality, you're joining its original rhythm. And as you expand in that rhythm, life starts moving with you, not against you. But there's one more layer, the one most people miss. Beyond personal mastery lies the spiritual current behind all of this, the intelligence that moves energy itself. You don't command it, you cooperate with it. And understanding that paradox, surrender as true power, is the final doorway of energy transmutation. At the highest level of energy transmutation, you stop being the one doing the transforming and start being the vessel through which transformation happens. This is the paradox that every mystic, scientist, and seeker eventually meets. The deeper your mastery, the more you realize you're not the source of coherence. You're the space it moves through. Surrender isn't weakness here. It's alignment with the intelligence that animates everything. Think about it. You don't make your heart beat. You don't consciously regulate the billions of cellular interactions happening inside you. There's a field of intelligence already orchestrating your existence with perfect precision. When you surrender, you stop interrupting that flow with resistance. You stop demanding life to fit your small plans and let it reveal the larger one that was always unfolding. It's like learning to surf. The ocean doesn't need your effort. It needs your cooperation. When you try to control the wave, you wipe out. When you align with its rhythm, you move effortlessly. That's the spiritual essence of transmutation, realizing that energy moves through surrender far faster than through force. In this state, you begin to experience something extraordinary, the merging of personal intention with universal rhythm. Decisions feel guided, timing becomes uncanny, synchronicities multiply. It's as if the field around you starts participating consciously in your evolution. And maybe it does. Science can measure coherence, but it can't yet explain why harmony itself seems to attract new order. Call it quantum intelligence, divine mind, source. The name doesn't matter. What matters is the felt truth. When you stop contracting, the field reorganizes around your openness. This is where transmutation evolves into devotion, not religious, but relational. You start to feel a partnership between your awareness and life's intelligence. Energy no longer feels like something to fix or master, but to dance with. You become both conductor and instrument, awareness and vibration, playing in unison. And that's where the deepest peace lives, knowing that every challenge, every intense emotion, every delay is not punishment. It's raw material, waiting for you to stay open long enough for it to become gold. This is the real alchemy, not about escaping humanity, but infusing it with light. The ultimate act of transmutation is living fully human, fully surrendered, and fully coherent at once. Because in the end, the field doesn't respond to perfection. It responds to truth. And truth at its core is vibrational harmony with what is. So here we are, the full circle of transmutation. Not theory, not performance, practice embodied. What began as emotion becomes current. What began as resistance becomes rhythm. You've turned energy into coherence, coherence into identity, and identity into flow. And maybe now you see it. This was never about learning control. It was about remembering conductivity. Everything you feel is data. Every charge in your chest, every pulse of discomfort, every spark of excitement. It's the universe moving through you, asking, can you let me complete? When you stop fighting what rises, energy finishes its cycle. You stop fracturing your power into stories, and it returns home as clarity. Imagine again the tuning fork we began with, your body, humming at its truest pitch. Around you, life rearranges, not through effort, but through resonance. People feel you before they hear you. Opportunities arrive not as surprises, but as natural extensions of the tone you've stabilized. You no longer chase reality. It harmonizes to meet you. And here's the quiet miracle. Nothing external had to change first. You became the field. You stopped waiting for alignment and started being it. That's the level of transmutation that can't be taught, only lived. If you take one thing from this, let it be this truth. Energy doesn't disappear. It waits for your permission to evolve. Whether it shows up as fear, grief, or desire, it's all one current, longing to rise into coherence through your awareness. When you allow it, you become the alchemist of your own field, a living conductor of transformation. So the next time life feels chaotic, remember, you don't need to force the storm to stop. You just need to hum in truth until the world remembers its rhythm through you. Because transmutation isn't power over energy, it's partnership with it. And that's the secret most were never meant to know.